Hello and welcome to the Two Man Power Trip Wrestling. I'm your host, JP. Now, Boz with me today, very special guest, former WWE announcer. He's worked for ESPN, worked for NBC Sports, worked for CBS. He's done some golf. He's done some stuff for the PFL right now for MMA. He's, of course, the coach, Jonathan Coachmen. Coach, welcome in.
What a pleasure it is to have me on your show, I should say. So, thank you, man.
Yes,
This is exciting for me.
Pleasure for me. So what's going on in your world? We were kind of briefly talking. You are so damn busy behind the turnbuckle. I mean, you got so much going on right now.
Yeah, it's been amazing. About a year ago, I would say maybe a little less than a year ago, I have a really big role with the PFL. You just said that with the Professional Fighters League. That's on ESPN. PGA Tour, that's on ESPN. But I had some people talk me into about a year ago. They said, hey, go talk to some content creators because with your ideas, I'm really a creative guy, I feel like. And I never wanted to get back in the wrestling space. I always said I never would. I didn't want to watch the shows anymore. But they also said, you've got almost 15 years in the WWE. Why would you not capitalize on that? And also try to educate the audience. So we started behind the turnbuckle. That has expanded into now we have four different shows. 2 are wrestling, 1 is sports betting, and 1 is kind of a hybrid. We have podcasts for every one of those shows. And then, so between the 4 projects, man, we're busy every day. I'm in this home studio, Johnny, I'm telling you, it never stops. But I tell kids all the time, and I tell people that I work with, if you're not grinding 24/7, if you're not going the extra mile, you cannot win in this space. And I promise you, nobody works harder than me and my team, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, you guys got so much content going out there. You ever get tired? It doesn't seem like it.
Well, and it's funny. I live in California, so I get up every day around 5:15 in the morning. I have my standard alarm set 5:15 every day. Our daily show is 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. out here. So my goal is to produce a sports center remotely. So you have limitations for that, but in order to do that, you got to think ahead. So the night before, I'm always writing, producing. I write everything for myself. I've got a producer who's amazing. Do I get tired? There's no question that I get tired. But the nice thing is, when you're on Pacific time, it's a little bit better because then we're done early in the afternoon. My kids are in high school. I can still get out and do stuff with them when their school is out. So, yeah, I get tired. There's no question. But I'm looking at what I do as a 5 to 10-year plan. And this doesn't happen overnight. I've met with some great, really big creators. And they're like, don't even expect revenue for the first 3 or 4 years. And we're already to that point. And don't expect profit for at least 5 to 10 years. So, I don't focus on the money. I focus on the content. And if we do that, I think long term, we're going to do really well. And we already have 2 shows on national TV at the Stadium Network on Amazon and Direct and all these big. We're available in over 100 million homes. I'm very proud of that, too.
Yeah, that's huge. Obviously, Stadium and obviously Direct TV, too. I mean, that's awesome. How did that all come about? Is it just, just pounding the pavement, just really, just hustling?
So here's the message I kind of give to people out there, because if I was a college kid coming out right now, if I was coach, 7 years ago, I would be like, hey, it's not the same as when you're coming out, go to Topeka, go to Kansas City, go to New York, and then get to ESPN. It's different now. You've got to be able to do everything. The other part that I've always remembered is you never know who's watching. You never know if there's one person that's watching your content. That's why I've got 8 guys that are on our show, and they trade out, throughout the week. But I say, guys, bring your best every single day. And this is the story why. Because Stadium, they used to carry the Cubs games and other traditional sports. And then they had a new management team come in, and they said, you know what, we're going to completely rebrand the entire network. And we're going to do sports betting, we're going to do combat sports, and we're going to do pro wrestling. And so they knew that would take probably a year or 2 to get enough programming in-house in order to do that. So one of the executives from Stadium last fall, he stumbled on our YouTube page, and he watched it for 2 months without even sending an email. So every single day he watched for 2 months, and just to see what kind of production we had, what kind of, vibe we were. And then he emailed me, said, hey, on LinkedIn, as a matter of fact, sent me a message, said, I'd love to talk to you. Gave him a call. And he was like, listen, everything you guys are doing, and we've shortened it now. It's Behind the Turnbuckle, but we call it BTT because Behind the Turnbuckle used to be a show. Now it's our brand, and so we've shortened it to BTT. But he called and he said, listen, everything that we want to do, you guys are already doing. And so we started with a repeat at 3:00 in the afternoon of our coaching company betting show. And then 3 months later, he's like, we love what you're doing. We want to give you the live spot at 10 a.m. Eastern. And then that morphed into, let's bring on one of your wrestling shows on. So we've had the last word. We're changing next Wednesday to me and Vince Russo. The Coach and Bro show is going to be on Stadium starting a week from Wednesday. Because it's a show that's just performing a lot better than the last word is, but I'm proud of both of them. So my point of telling you that story is, whether it's your podcast, whether it's, and I hate the word podcast. And it's not because of anything other than I hate it. It's a me thing. Because to me, podcasts are show up when you want, do what you want, call in sick when you want. And when you're trying to build a fan base at a certain time every single day, 5 days a week, you got to show up. And you got to bring your best. And it's got to be top shelf production. So when somebody says, hey, when's your podcast on? I said, we're not a podcast. We are a show. We are a brand. And that is what we do. And that's a me thing, because I want people to think about it as I'm watching as close to Sports Center as I can get from a remote show. And if you want to come in and work with that, great. If you don't, I don't need you. But I want people who show up every single day and understand that this is a platform that they would never get walking in the gates of ESPN or Fox or any of the places that I've worked. I know the level it takes. And so right now we have a lot of people who want to do this, and they have an opportunity with our show.
Love that. Yeah. And obviously you've been there, done that, WWE and ESPN. So you know kind of what it takes just from a talent perspective. You really know what it takes. But I love that the guy is watching your channel, but he doesn't say anything to you. But you guys just churning out good stuff. And then he messaged you guys. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah. And he was like, we were spending millions. And I don't know the exact number, but he used millions. And he said, we've decided that we can get the exact, think about this, we can get the exact same numbers, if not better, by bringing in a remote, what I call turnkey show or turnkey brand. And we don't have to spend on, now this is also leads to another thing, that talent and people are becoming more rare. So you've got to be even better, because let's say Stadium had 3 shows, just to be hypothetical. And this could be any brand, any network. And they've got 24 people that work on these shows. And now they say, we're not doing studio shows anymore. So now those 24 people are now looking for a different job, and they want to stay in this business. So what's the point of that very quick story? Is if you're not actively trying to get better, making your skill set more wide-ranging, trying to figure out what I'm going to do in this new space that has podcasting, that has shorts and reels and content and all social media, all that stuff. If you're not doing that, when networks like Stadium or ESPN or Fox, when they decide to go this route, a lot of people are like, oh, damn, what do I do? We were ahead of the game, which is why we're in the position that we're in. And then hopefully down the road in 3 to 5 years, it'll be a legitimate brand that either we're getting paid a lot of money or we sell it like what Pat McAfee did with his brand.
Do you think with all that, with sports betting now, do you think that it's almost getting like out of control with how many people claim to be like sports gambling experts? Do you think like that's kind of getting a little crazy?
Oh, there's no question, because 80% are not. And that's why I say at the start of our show, Coaching Company, every day, we are a sports betting and sports show. We are not a sports betting show. Because if you do a 365 or even 250 days like we do it, there's going to be burnout. And there's going to be times during the year where, it's only like coming up in June and July, it's basically baseball and a little bit of soccer. And if you're not entertaining, if you're not, like, we have segments, we have transitions, meaning we got a segment called One Word, Hoop It Up, Round the Rink, whatever it is. And we have transitions with music into those. Why do we do that? Well, you watch any sports betting show, most of them are 2 people talking for 2 or 3 hours. I can't watch that. I want to be entertained. Certainly in the morning, I want to be entertained. So we do focus on our picks, but that's only one segment out of a 4-segment show with commercials. So there's no question there's a lot of people that are out there. There's also a lot of people that were flashes in the pan that came out and they're like, hey, and they had a little bit of a hook, and then they got exposed because they also realized, and you can understand this from how good you are doing your show and hosting, that when you have to do live stuff, because you see a lot of these influencers and they're popular and they get a lot of views on their content, But what people don't realize is their content is edited, heavily edited. And so eventually you don't want to travel to shoot that show on a golf course or whatever, because it costs a lot of money to hire crews and do that. So if you can't do content in your own space without a big budget, I went and did an interview with Fluffy, Gabriel Iglesias, the big comedian, and I shot it myself with my iPhone. And between the two parts, we have well over 1 million views on that interview. And so I tell kids all the time, you don't have to have fancy equipment and a bunch of people. You just got to have creativity, grind, and also be okay with certain things looking a certain way. So the sports betting stuff falls into that category. And I don't like watching people fall off the bus, so to speak. But I also like to see people that put in hard work, that understand, that have talent, that I work with my crew, that I like seeing my people succeed, because other people want the shortcut, especially in sports betting. There's so many scammers out there that'll post, oh, I just spent $200,000 on this. Come buy my premium play or whatever the case might be. Yeah. Those people are flashes in the pan. If you can do a live show, if you can do live content, and you can do it more than one day a week, now I'll talk to you. Now I'll say, okay, maybe you understand what this takes at the highest level. And that's not a knock on anybody. We're talking specifically sports betting. And also, I think a lot of the sports books are going through a change. Because remember when this started 6 or 7 years ago, it was they're throwing money at everybody. Everybody's getting millions of dollars. And if you were lucky enough, you were one of those people. Now, all that money is run out. And these sports books, because I literally have 2 meetings tomorrow with sports books. And they've realized there's only so many new customers. How many times have you seen on TV? If you bet $5, I'm going to give you $200 in free play.
Yes.
For new customers only. Well, how many new customers are there? How many times can a person change sports books? So what I preach when I meet with potential clients and partners that want to grow with our brands is don't come to me with a code. Don't ask me, hey, you're going to get paid based off of me doing the work for you. And that's what an acquisition deal is. And a lot of podcasts are that way, and that's fine. But when you come to me and say, I want to be on your show, we bring you brand awareness on a platform that's in 110 million homes. So we don't necessarily think that a success is getting 1,000 people to sign up for a $5 promotion. We believe that the long play is we're going to bring awareness to your brand. And in the long run, when somebody's sitting around going, I remember on Coaching Company, they were talking about BetMGM. And BetMGM did X, Y, and Z. And to me, brand awareness, think about whenever you're eating. You go, where I'm going to eat. I love Wingstop. I just saw that commercial. That's what we do organically on our show. So don't come to me with a code and say, we're going to give you a percentage of how many people sign up. That's your job. My job is to make people aware of your brand.
Well said. I like that. Yes. And it's so true about the sports betting stuff, because you see these guys that claim like they were like gurus or whatever, but they were just doing kind of like analytical stuff where anybody can kind of do that stuff.
No doubt.
I was checking StatCast and, the Yankees are fake. It was obvious stuff that anybody could really, if you just pay attention to analytics, that you could just figure out on their own. So they got exposed. A lot of those guys.
Big time.
I think it's funny though, like Dave Portnoy will bet like $250,000 on like Caitlin Clark getting a triple-double. Now we're getting like into the weeds with gambling here, just like almost too into the weeds with some of this gambling stuff.
All right, but think about it. I'm so glad you brought that up, because Dave Portnoy, and I used to admittedly not like the Barstool brand. I didn't like the way they went about it. And then I started studying and doing the work. I spend 30 minutes to an hour every single day trying something that I don't know how to do. A lot of times it's editing social media videos, whatever it is. But I started studying these different brands. And I'm like, how did they get to where they are? And for Dave Portnoy, when he bets $200,000, most people don't realize he got one of the luckiest breaks ever. Builds a media company, sells it because they wanted to start a sports book. And then when the sports book failed, Penn Gaming sold his company back to him for $1. And then because they couldn't have 2 sports books, so they wanted to go into business with ESPN. So then Barstool just signs a $10 million deal with DraftKings. So for Portnoy, it's an investment in the deal with DraftKings. And they have 2 or 3 different betting shows. So now that's what I'm talking about. Organically, DraftKings, probably the smartest deal they've ever made, because they made a lot of bad ones 5 or 6 years ago. But now with the Barstool brand, that fan base are 18 to 34-year-old idiots, because I'm one of them, that are betting on Caitlin Clark and whatever it is Caitlin Clark is doing. So for Dave Portnoy to do that, he's now telling people, as the leader of this brand, I'm in it with you. I'm putting my own money on the line, and I'm putting a lot of it, which means I'm confident in what I'm doing. So you should be too over here at DraftKings. And now the next deal could be $20 million. It's investing in what you're doing, and he's very, very smart, whether it's the pizza delivery, whether it's DraftKings, whatever it is. I've got a lot of respect for what Dave Portnoy has done and continues to do. Plus, he seems to be a pretty nice guy behind all of it. And so that means his character development, which you and I both love as wrestling fans,
Yes.
He's got a great character for who he is and what he runs.
Right. And he's big on Boston. He's basically guaranteeing the Celtics would win. They get destroyed, and obviously they're done. So that adds to like the heel heat and everything else he's got going on. The New Yorkers hate him. Yeah. Like, gotta love that. Yeah, very, very wrestling like a little bit there, where he's
if you don't
playing
embrace
up
your
the heel.
yeah, if you don't embrace your heel when you're in his position, you're literally leaving money on the table. And he's not going to do it. He's got a big business to run. Barstool is turning into a big business. There's no doubt about it.
Now, obviously, wrestling. Wrestling. Like you said, 15 years at WWE. When you were talking, I think it was the other day or the other week, you were talking about the power struggle at WWE, and I was just kind of curious. The way it's laid out, like the map, if you will, or the hierarchy, if you will. So The Rock is ahead of Ari. Is that the way it was going? I was thinking, like, I thought Ari was the boss of WWE.
Oh, no. So Ari is the boss. So what we were talking about on the Coach and Bro show is how everything is laid out, and you can kind of take the power struggle from the people the names that are on the revenue that they had to report, as big companies do. And on the report, Ari was the number one guy. He is the guy. He also runs 2 or 3 other things that they run. It gets very complicated. But for this discussion, The Rock got anywhere from 30 to 45 million in the last year to come back and be on the board of directors. So on their financials, you've got Ari, you've got another name, and then you got Vince McMahon. And then below Vince, because Vince still owns third most stock options or pieces of stock in the company. Most people don't realize that. So then you keep going down. There's only about 8 names on the list, and there's Dwayne Johnson. And then you got Nick Khan, the president of WWE. The one name that's not on there is Paul Levesque. It's Triple H. And from my time there and my time with The Rock, I know for a fact that he does not get along with Triple H. That does not go away. They've always been butting heads for years and years for a lot of different reasons. And I actually like Triple H a lot. He's always been nice to me. He's kind of a ball buster, but that's okay. But now with this dynamic with Vince being pushed out, now Triple H is the old school guy. He's the guy, and at his core, he's an old school wrestling guy. The reason I said on my show there's a big power struggle, well, first of all, I've talked to 2 people close to the situation. And they've told me, but I can't tell you who they are, but I've got really good intel. Also, look at everything, John, that played out the last 3 months, if you really look at it. And fans love to read headlines, don't they? I call them marks for a reason. They read, I've been getting crushed over one quote I made about Bailey 3 weeks ago when it was an 8-minute discussion. And that's why I hate dirt sheets. But Rock comes back at Elimination Chamber. We thought it was going to be this great lead up to the greatest heel turn in the history of the business. Did you think that? I thought that.
Yes.
Yeah. So we don't see The Rock at all. They do shows overseas to facilitate Cena and his movie schedule. But not only do we not see The Rock doesn't tweet. He doesn't post. And we know nobody uses social media better than The Rock to promote things that he is in. Remember a year ago when he was part of the whole Cody thing, he was posting 10, 12-minute videos on Instagram.
Those are awesome, yeah.
Nothing, remember? So I encourage fans, do a little homework. Don't just go look at a headline on a website and go, oh, that must be true. Because when you look at this situation and The Rock's getting, let's say, $40 million to be on the board of directors. Johnny, if you and I were on the board of directors of a company and they had their biggest event of the year and they've got 100 million fans subscribed to YouTube. They've got 100 million fans on Twitter, on Instagram. Don't you think that you should at least post during the week of said event? Is that too much to ask? Right?
Definitely not.
Not a
Definitely
post.
not. Yep.
Not a post. Not only did he have a post, the 3 posts he had within those 5 days was on Project Rock and his Under Armour shoe. So if you go to look at his Twitter, that's all that was there. That's intentional. That's intentional. Because then he doesn't tweet the night of for a main event storyline that he started. And then it got worse. He went on Pat McAfee after Cena went on Monday. And the other part that I don't agree with right now when it comes to the WWE is that TKO, who's their owners, they want to make it an entertainment product. Vince never would have allowed this. And I got to believe at his core, Triple H doesn't agree with it. Because now they're saying when these guys are on the show, they're the character. When they're off the show, they're just a regular person. That's not how wrestling works. Like, I'm the coach 24/7. Now, do we know it's choreographed? Of course we do, Johnny. Of course we do. But I don't want it shoved down my throat that it is. So when The Rock doesn't show up, Cena goes on Pat McAfee, and he's baby facing the fans after he just won the title as a heel. He should have still been a heel. And then 24 hours later, The Rock shows up on McAfee, but couldn't be in Vegas, and then gives a flimsy excuse of, I've got my own things going on. Wouldn't even be specific. And then he tells us that Ari asked him to come to Toronto because ticket sales were down. He didn't say, I came there to help with the storyline. He didn't say, hey, we had this planned out. He said, I came to help with ticket sales. Oh, and by the way, we decided to do the heel turn. So he's telling us that somewhere along the way, there was a disconnect between him and creative. And I don't know why people couldn't see that from watching the interview. And then on top of that, you literally don't even show up for anything. And then to say ticket sales are slow, have you noticed the last 6 months, Mark Shapiro, the CFO or COO of TKO, every chance he gets, well, we're not charging enough for tickets. Clearly, because we're selling out so fast. Yeah. Oh, clearly, we're going to knock 100 live events. House shows are the lifeblood of pro wrestling. That's how you get fans to fall in love with a character, is going to Poughkeepsie, to Erie, Pennsylvania, to White Plains, whatever it is. And they're knocking all those off the board. Why? Because they want to make sure the guys have work-life balance. Get it. Give them a weekend off. I missed one Monday in my first 10-plus year run in the WWE. Did I like it? I wish I would have had some more days off, but the bottom line is this is the wrestling business, and there are certain ways that you do things to make it successful. And when you have a corporation take over a family-based, talent-based business, there's a disconnect. And that's all we were trying to talk about. And if you look at everything that I just laid out for you on your show, then you can see that I'm right. And we predicted that within 18 months, Triple H will not be running WWE anymore.
Wow, that's obviously pretty bold, but that's pretty crazy if you just think about the success he's had so far. But if he's butting heads with the board of the director of the board of directors, the lead guy, and you know what I mean, that could be a problem.
Well, look at WrestleMania. If you want to really break it down, and I always compare, because even though he's head of creative, he is the new Vince McMahon of WWE. You're two different companies under one umbrella. So Triple H is the face. Nick Khan does a lot of interviews, but it's Triple H. And I actually feel kind of bad for him because I've always really, really liked him. But look at what happened at WrestleMania. He gets inducted into the Hall of Fame for the third time. An hour and 37-minute speech at 1 o'clock in the morning. You're overscheduling the entire week. There's nothing free for fans to go to. And then at WrestleMania, you're going to disrespect Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin and walk them out with everybody else to give a wave to the crowd, and you get your own water music entrance right next to those guys. He made himself the star of the week because I believe, and this is all wrestlers, they're paranoid. Our egos, including mine, get bruised. We're like, oh, where's the next one to go? For him, it's not a money issue. For him, it's this is my life issue. And if he goes away and he's not running the WWE anymore, where is Triple H going to go at 55 years of age? He still has 20, 30 years left. There's only two big companies that are on that level, and AEW is not even on that level. So I actually feel bad for him because there's a power struggle. Nick Khan, by the way, he doesn't even go to Connecticut anymore. So you've got an entire company that the president is never even in the building because he stays in LA. So if that's not a power struggle, if that's not a power dynamic, I don't know what is.
His lifelong friend, The Rock, too, never in Connecticut, obviously. Nick's lifelong friend. The only thing about Triple H, though, that's very interesting to me is who would want that job? He supposedly, and I believe it too, probably works like 80 hours a week. Who else would fill in and want to work? Obviously, The Rock doesn't want to do that, right? No, he's not doing that job. You know?
Here's my prediction, is that The Rock wants Brian Gerwitz to be the head of creative again. I think.
Wow.
And a few people know this. I actually sublet my very first apartment when I moved to Stamford, Connecticut back in 2000, 22 years old, from Brian Gerwitz. It was his apartment.
Wow.
And he wanted to live in New York City. So he needed to get rid of it, but they wouldn't let him out of his lease. So I've known him for a really long time. And I've got a lot of respect for his creativity. But there's no way that Brian could come back. He used to be the head writer of Raw, that he leaves to run all of Rock's $7 production from a creative standpoint. And back in the day, if you saw Rock, I guarantee you within 10 feet, Brian was going to be somewhere. They were in lockstep. So he has trusted Brian for 25, 26 years. So when you have a really powerful voice in charge of creative, and I don't know how much Rock is still liking making movies. I know he's got a big one coming up with Martin Scorsese, but I know this, Rock loves to make money, and when offered $40 million to come back, who's going to turn that down? When you go through the process where Black Adam cost a lot to make, didn't make a lot of money. Moana made a lot of money, but let's be honest. I love a lot of Rock's movies, but early on, he made what I thought was a fundamental mistake. And I actually talked to him about it one time, and he kind of brushed me off. That when he left, he really listened to his agents. And his agent said, you got to cut ties with the WWE. I went through the same thing at ESPN. A lot of executives back then, not now, clearly, but back then, they didn't like what we called the wrestling stink. And when I came out of WWE, I was trying to get a regular job. Nobody would hire me. Finally, ESPN did. But I had that wrestling stink on me. Rock had the wrestling stink on him, trying to become a bona fide A-list movie star. So he left cold turkey. So it was a lot of his early movies, which I loved, fans didn't go see. Because, Johnny, you got, let's say $5 million, to use that as a number for this discussion, okay?
Yep.
$10 a ticket to go to the movies. That's $50 million you would start with from just wrestling fans before the normal people go to see it. But when you alienate those fans, you know this, wrestling fans are brutal, man. They feel like you're their guy. We made you. You're my guy, Rock. And if you're going to leave me after me building you up for 5 years, making you a multi-gazillionaire, I'm not going to go see your movie. And I thought that was a fundamental mistake. Instead of showing up on Raw once a week, every 2 weeks, and still showing that you're a wrestling guy. And hell, he spent 2 hours a day covering his tattoo until he was like, screw it. This is who I am, and I'm going to leave it. And then he was able to work out for those 2 hours instead of getting makeup. So to me, all the way along, it's been like this with his movie career. He's done great in business and all of that, and I've got so much respect. A lot of what I do, how I talk, how I move, I learned from him. But when you get to a certain point in your life and somebody hands you easy money and gives you power and gives you creativity, that's a really hard thing to turn down. And I think something happened, and we're going to see it playing out in real time, but something happened where once you take the money, you still have to show up. And we didn't show up. You got to believe behind the scenes, somebody wasn't happy about it.
It is crazy to me because he basically said on Pat McAfee, he didn't show up. He didn't want to take the shine away or the attention away from Cena. But by not showing up, he even did that even worse. That was even worse happened.
That's the greatest point that you could ever make. And he knows that, Johnny. He knows that. He knew that when he said that, I was sitting right here watching it on the big screen right next to me. And I was like, that is bullshit. I was like, there's no, he's smarter than that. He knew by not showing up that all anybody would talk about was him not showing up. And then what happened? The 13 other matches, 2 nights of WrestleMania, nobody talked about any of them. You watch any of the recaps, any of the shows, nothing. And that to me was a real disservice to the talent that got onto the shows. Now, don't get me started with the 2-night event. They don't have enough talent right now to fill 2 nights and make me interested. But if you're going to do it, then you got to believe that some of those matches are worth talking about. He sucked the entire oxygen out of that entire event by simply not showing up. And then 2 days later, giving us that excuse for not showing up. That also told me that they were scrambling on the fly, that they're trying to come up with something because they're like, oh, damn, we miscalculated this. And that to me, Johnny, was the hardest thing to understand. These are really smart wrestling people. When you're doing a wrestling angle, you start it and you finish it. But when he said, oh,
yeah.
I called Cody and I called John afterwards, and they said, I think the final boss's job is done. Remember when he said that on McAfee?
Yeah,
I think my job, your job is done. All you've done is this. That's it. You did the throat slash. That's all you did. And then, Johnny, please, I mean, I'm a pretty creative person, but it would have taken me about that long to go, okay, let's have a boring match with a few moves and then send, Travis Scott and all 160 pounds of him down to the ring and then have John Cena miss Cody by a foot with the shot with the belt. And that's how Cena wanted to move into the record books. So when you talk about the 17-time world champion, that's going to be the match that he wanted in. That's what he's going to be bragging about for the rest of his career. Come on, don't insult our intelligence. That was quite possibly the worst way you can break the record. And I know Cena. Yep. I traveled with Cena. I can't believe that he was on board with this. But alas, he's also a team player. And once the clock ticks down, you got to walk out and you got to execute the game plan that you have.
My whole thing with that, first of all, it was awful and terrible. But when you have an entrance for a guy and Cena and the music hits, you immediately think it's The Rock. So for the fact that it's Travis Scott, period, is terrible. But the fact he got an entrance with music to get everybody hyped, that would like added to it. I was like, holy crap, who wrote this? Like, that was so bad. That was awful.
It's a lot of companies are doing this now. And it's cross promotion. I call it cross pollination. And they love to go with the influencers and the guys that have really big following. You've seen that with I Show Speed or whatever his name is. And I'll give I Show Speed, if that's his right name. I'll give him credit because he took a shot from Ron Breaker at the Rumble that most wrestlers wouldn't have taken. But if you notice his inexperience, his left arm was down or his right arm, which one? And that's how you break an arm when you get a spear with the velocity of a Braun Breaker. You just got to learn how to take it. He's untrained. Travis Scott is untrained, and now the big storyline is he's working with Booker T, and he's at Booker T school. Booker's a very good trainer, but Travis Scott's 160 pounds, and he's got millions and millions of followers. So what do they do, Johnny? They're like, well, if we can get his entire fan base to watch WrestleMania and buy in, maybe we can get new people to come over and spend money. That's why you do it. And to me, this is the one business that doesn't translate that way. Some 16-year-old kid that loves Travis Scott isn't necessarily going to watch a PLE on Peacock to watch his boy maybe or maybe not be there. And so they did not get the publicity that I think they thought they were going to.
Definitely. And to me, this is like crazy, but maybe I'm just an old school wrestling fan. I'm trying to book it logically here. But if you don't have Rock for Mania, Cena loses. That's the thing. He should have lost. And then Rock comes back, and then Cena wins. I don't care if it's next show, but like he can't win if he doesn't have the group together. Like him, Travis Scott, Rock. That was the whole thing. So if Rock isn't there, you can't have 2 weaker guys beat the one guy that you're, pumping up that he's like the Hogan of or the Austin of your show. It's like, I don't know. To me, that was like booking 101. Like that's a huge mistake.
I don't disagree with you. What I would say is, if you knew Rock was only in town to sell tickets, and I actually called somebody in Canada that is close to this situation because I wanted to make sure that if I'm going to talk on my show about these things, that I at least have some semblance of an answer of the facts. And this person told me that 1,000% ticket sales were struggling. And that wasn't something that TKO wanted to make public because they have one of their head executives every chance he gets to say, hey, we're so red hot, we got to charge more and more and more and more. And at that point, tickets were already on sale for WrestleMania at a ridiculous price. So to bring The Rock in, what would they have done? Did they not know when Cena lost the Royal Rumble that they were going to do this at Elimination Chamber? By Rock's own mouth, the answer is no. And so if he's going to be there, what I would have done is let Cena win as a babyface. Have a really, really hard fought, but I don't know how long he can go or how hard he can go at 45 years of age or however old he is, 46. So I would have let him win as a babyface and go crazy, and the crowd would have gone bananas. And then you spend this summer, he can sell his soul the next night. You could have brought Rock out or brought, and this is the other lost art, Johnny. When I was in full-time in the WWE, if somebody was going to be gone shooting a movie or they were hurt or whatever the case was, you put them in a backstage skit or you shoot a video with them. It's about the TV product, not just about the product in the building. But nowadays, if they give somebody time off, they're off. They're gone. We don't see Roman for 3 months.
Yeah.
We haven't seen Cody since WrestleMania. And that, to me, is a huge, huge mistake. When you can throw a camera in somebody's house and then cut a video. You could have Rock show up and be like, last night, I made it happen. Or you could have the referee somehow quick 3 count. Whatever. And be like, I was controlling everything last night, and there was no way that Cena was going to lose. He sold his soul to me for the opportunity. And then still kind of do the same thing, but now he's a heel throughout the summer, flip him in the fall, which is what they're going to do anyway. But now I've heard rumors that Rock and Cena somehow are going to do something around SummerSlam because I think everybody realizes that they had such a missed opportunity. And I've heard people talk about sabotage. I've heard some people who I respect a lot say Rock was, and I find it so hard to believe that they would use the biggest night of the year to make a point. I have a hard time believing that. But if that's the truth, wow, how serious has it become backstage if that is truly what's going on? And so there's such a negative, and I feel like on my show sometimes, I don't know how you are, but I feel like I'm apologizing for being negative because there's been so many mistakes made. And I don't like to do that. We like to be honest and even and praise what's good and criticize what isn't good. But I had nothing good to say about WrestleMania. And my friends who were there were like, what a nightmare. Just getting across town was, it would take 3 hours. And if you were trying to buy tickets to multiple events, and then you got the roast, which was also embarrassing. And when audio and video came out about that, it's just right now I feel like there's so many cooks in the kitchen that they're throwing stuff against the wall, but none of it's sticking. And I hate that because I love this business. And obviously, I love the WWE. I'm an OG from there. But I don't like seeing really smart people trying to write. We figured it up, 400 hours of television a year, and that's without NXT. So right now, how do you stay ahead of it when you've got to write that many hours of TV every single year? It's almost impossible.
Yeah, it is crazy. And it's funny, I think like they were doing good up until Mania, and I feel like the lead up to Mania, they kind of like were losing steam, but I felt like they were doing okay. But Elimination Chamber, another weird thing, like why is that in a stadium? You know what I mean? It's Elimination Chamber. That's not really like stadium worthy. And I don't think the fans thought that was a stadium worthy show. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like that was odd. Like they almost like overshot it. Like then The Rock has to come back and be like, well, I need to sell tickets for this damn stadium. Why even have it at a stadium to begin with?
Bro, it's a great question by you. And that goes back to everything I've been saying. It's what, to be honest with you, and this sounds arrogant, it's why my shows are growing so fast. Is that people realize that they come and watch our content. They've got 2 guys with me and Vince Russo that have been there for many, many, many years and have the answers to these exact questions. And the bottom line is the answer to 9 out of 10 questions when it comes to TKO: money.
Agreed. Yeah.
Money, money, money. Why are we having a 2-night SummerSlam? Money, double the gate. What did Michael Cole say at the start of wrestling? It's our highest grossing event ever. They don't use the highest attended event ever anymore. They use grossing event. What's the difference, your fans will say? The difference is you can sell 15,000 tickets for more than 17,000 tickets by pricing them higher. So if you have 2,000 empty seats, the day before WrestleMania, tickets went from in nosebleeds $1,000 down to $150 the day before. And if that doesn't scream to you, we've mispriced all of our tickets. And also looking at the long term, if you're going to go stadium for every one of your big events, and Johnny, to your point, Elimination Chamber is not a big event. You've got 4. Everybody knows that. You got Rumble, you got Mania, you got
SummerSlam
and Survivor Series. Yeah. So you got 4. Those are the 4 big ones. It's always been that way. The other ones fill in the blanks. And to me, though, you've got these executives that never I would almost bet that 80% of the executives for TKO before they bought the WWE never were at a show. Never understood that the business is built on families, on taking little Johnny, little Susie, and little Johnny and little Susie growing up, taking their kids, and it just repeating over and over and over and over again. And if dad and mom can't spend $60,000 on front row tickets at WrestleMania and can't take their family, it's not going to happen today. They just got $5 billion from Netflix. But in 5 years, 6 years, hell, it's already happening. And all of a sudden, you're only selling half the tickets for your event. Well, now you're going back the other way. And I fear that that's what is going to happen because we're already seeing it decline the other way.
I just took little Johnny, my son. I took him to Raw at MSG. It was the most I've ever spent for MSG. I've been really close. So we were in the 200s, 220 section. It was $175 each. So, whatever, $350.
You weren't even in the 100s.
No, it was in the 200s. Yeah, crazy.
So 100's in the $300 to $400 range.
Yes.
Right? Yes. That's insane. That's insane for a wrestling show. Now, I will say this, that Madison Square Garden is 3 times as expensive as most other arenas to rent. I'll give them that. It's about $200,000 for them to rent Madison Square Garden. Austin is only $35,000. That gives people kind of an idea. But still, I remember Vince told us one time he was willing to take a loss on a show just to run Madison Square Garden. And always ran it during Christmas. He would take a loss on a show to make sure that they ran Madison Square Garden a certain number of times every year. He believed in that. He believed that was the home. It's always been the home of the WWE, and you don't not play it because of cost. And that's what he would do. Yeah. Man.
I've been to a ton of shows. That's obviously the most I've ever spent at the Garden. But I've been to a ton of shows at the Garden. I was just like, my God, I can't believe SummerSlam '98. I was there, and it was better seats, but it was way cheaper back then. So just crazy. Doubt. That's pay-per-views. But yeah, it is crazy how much TKO's charging for tickets and stuff. I'm even looking at SummerSlam at Giant Stadium. It's a ton. It's a lot.
How much is it right now? I haven't even looked yet.
So good seats that I was looking at, but not great, were like $1,000 a piece. So I was like, man, that's crazy. So I didn't even click down further. I'm guessing it would be between 5,000 and 10,000 if you want to get really up close, which is crazy for a stadium show, on 2 nights.
And it's a 2-night show. That's the other part of this that nobody understands. There is no ticket demand when you have a 2-night show in a stadium. There's no ticket demand. It's 120,000 tickets. Just like in WrestleMania, they had the day before Mania, 48,000 for night 1, 50,000 for night 2. And magically, when they went on the air, Michael Cole said it was 124,000 combined. I'm not a math major, but the math doesn't add up unless they just papered it and handed out tickets outside of the show beforehand or sold them for $50. But SummerSlam, you're charging, and I think that they were charging. There's a VIP package for $47,000. I heard.
It's sold out.
Is that true?
It's sold out.
Those sold out, right?
Yep.
See, that's the problem. When people pay that kind of money, and I said something on social media, and the fans were like, "Coach, but that was a package that involved a limo," and I'm like, and you're putting lipstick on a pig. you're still paying $47,000 to go to a wrestling show at the end of the day. And that's just insanity to me. Insanity.
I forget which wrestlers you get to be. I might have been Undertaker or something, but you could go to a Comic-Con or something and meet him for like $200 or whatever it is.
That's exactly right. I can go buy a ticket for $50 and stand in line to get Taker's autograph. My God.
Yeah, I like, to me, I was like, wow, if you have that kind of money, I want to see your house, I want to see your car. Like, if you're spending on wrestling tickets, I want to see what else you got. Like, man, that's just insane to me that they have that type of money.
Do you know one of my favorite things when I used to go to WrestleMania? And I've been a part of 16 WrestleManias. My first run, I was knee deep in WWE. I was early 20s. I loved being on the road. As soon as I unpacked my bag, I couldn't wait to get back to the airport and do it all over again. I loved it. My favorite thing was going to WrestleMania right from TV, right from SmackDown, getting in on Wednesday and hitting the ground running and meeting all those fans that had come from 50 different countries, that had all the different accents, that spent their loving last dollar. And I would, in my own little way, try to give them extras. And if it meant, hey, here's a T-shirt for your son, or hey, here's an extra autograph, or hey, come on over here, Hurricane. I want you to meet these guys and take a picture. Whatever it was my favorite thing. And it made their lives, because this was a bucket list event. It still is. But when you turn a bucket list event into the Super Bowl, and now it's a corporate event, now little Johnny and little Susie don't matter anymore. And that is where a lot of us have a problem.
Yeah, they got to go back to the basics of the like kids can afford it. I know Vince back in the day, I was watching that WrestleMania 9 documentary. He said he wanted to make sure that there was $25 tickets. I know this is 1993, but that's awesome that he was saying, I want this price point always available to those fans.
It's a mindset. It's not even about the year. It's a mindset. And when your mindset is, I need every last dollar. One of the guys that I have a lot of respect for right now, he's the owner of the Savannah Bananas. And my show on Stadium, they're the most popular baseball team in the world. And they're like a Class A ball. They're like minor league baseball. But they're not, they literally have added 12 teams this year. The main team is only doing 4 games in baseball stadiums. They did football stadiums. They had 65,000 people at Clemson to play against Clemson in a preseason game. His entire motto is fan first. He says that they don't even charge, get this, sales tax on their merch. Think about that for a second.
Wow.
They pay the sales tax. They pay the delivery. And so he's like, we leave millions of dollars on the table every year because we want to make sure that the fans, when they buy our T-shirt, they'll buy 3 of our T-shirts for the entire family. So we pay that. And so then when the family's walking around their hometown, people are like, hey, what is that? And he goes, it's long-term thinking. And he goes, I don't even know how much money's in our bank account. Have no idea. We just go out, and everybody that works for them has to have, when they fill out their resume or fill out it's like they ask particular questions because they want unselfish people. And when I started studying them, and their games are on right after my show, sometimes the repeats, and I'm like, how cool is it that my show is right before this incredibly popular baseball team? And the way they've changed the game, that if a foul ball is caught by a fan, that's an out. How cool is that? There's a time limit on games, 2 hours. That's it. So all of these innovative things are fan first that long term, Johnny, are going to bring them way more money than if they charge sales tax or charge delivery. And the WWE does just the opposite of that. It's almost like they sit around in a room, and you and I have talked now for 30 or 40 minutes. We haven't even talked storyline other than main event at WrestleMania, because this is what's going on in the wrestling business right now. And that sucks. I would rather talk to you about Dom. I'd rather talk to you about Tiffy Tom. I'd rather talk to you about all this stuff. But half the time, I'm getting texts as I'm doing this interview. It's like, oh, Raw sucks again. Oh, we can't get them out. Money in the Bank again. Oh, it's. And when you have so much content, and there's no going back. There's no going back because all these contracts are done. So Netflix already paid for 10 years. If I said, Johnny, I'm going to give you a 10-year contract, and I'm going to pay you all the money up front, guaranteed. Be realistic. How hard would you really work for those 10 years?
you could slow play it for sure. Like you don't have to give the balls to the wall. You don't have to go crazy attitude ever. We got WCW breathing down your neck. You don't have to go crazy every week.
Absolutely. Dead on. Dead on. And that's what they're working with right now. But there are little cracks that fans should look at. Like when SmackDown went to USA. USA was so desperate to stay in the game that they took the Friday night show. The same show that when Fox, by the way, I was partly responsible for that $1 billion deal because Vince and Kevin Dunn called me middle of the night 2014 and begged me to get WWE content on SportsCenter. Our contracts are coming up. We need to sell to a legit network. We need to show them that our content's on. And so I went to my detriment, I might add, and I got WWE content every Tuesday. We did a segment, 5 to 10 minutes, with an interview that WWE paid for on site with me. They took that content, went to Fox, got $1 billion. And how fast did Fox try to get out of that deal? Fast. Because they quickly realized after the star-studded red carpet premiere, nobody watches TV on Friday nights. Even less people watch TV on Saturday nights. So they invested in what they thought was going to be a red-hot product, could not get rid of it fast enough. Well, USA scooping it right up. But what are we seeing, Johnny? They're already going from 3 hours back to 2 hours. And if you're a network and you have 3-hour programming that's red hot, that third hour is pretty lucrative, wouldn't you think, for advertising?
Sure. Yep.
I would think so. So clearly it's not going as well as they think because they're going back to 2 hours. Now, to me, I'd go back to 2 hours because it's the right thing to do. Because now you don't have to have 3-segment matches all the time with talent that you don't have. And we actually talked today, me and Vince Russo, we were talking about how many wrestlers do they have on the roster that actually sell tickets. That when you put their face on the marquee, you're stopping and saying, hey, I'd like 2 tickets or I'd like 4 tickets. We counted 7. 7.
Whoa, okay.
Between all the brands, 7 that we believe people actually buy a ticket to walk in the door. Now, it's not to criticize the other talent. The other talent collectively make people want to come and watch the show. But we had a guy that sent us a DM in the chat, and this is another problem they're having, and this is the disconnect, is you've got a marketing team in Vegas. Right now, if you've got 2 people with the same job, because I know this for a fact, and they both do travel, the lady who did my travel for my entire career, 36 years, she gets fired. Have they stopped doing TV? Have they stopped traveling? No. So you got a person that does travel for UFC. They give all of that to her and their little team because they want everything in Vegas and LA and the West Coast. And now all these people in Connecticut are getting fired. So when that happens, now all of a sudden, less and less people are going to be on that side of the fence. And I completely just lost. What was I just talking about? I was just trying to explain something. I literally lost my train of thought.
Well, you were saying basically they only have 7 guys on TV that are good enough talent, but collectively they're
there. You go. There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So you've got marketing people on that side that don't know about selling tickets. They don't know how it works. And so when you don't have house shows anymore, this guy said he just went to SmackDown, and on the poster, Cody, Bianca, and a third person was advertised. None of them were at the show. So when you've got little Johnny, and he's like, I'm going to see Cody Rhodes tonight. When I buy my ticket back in March for a May show, and Cody Rhodes is on the marquee, Cody Rhodes better show up.
Right.
And so they're starting to advertise shows now with talent that is not showing up. And that's going to be an even bigger problem. Hopefully it's just a couple of mistakes here and there, but we had several people in our chat today that said the exact same thing.
Who were the 7? Do you remember off the top of your head?
All right, so Becky and Rhea Ripley were the 2 females. Because we were talking about people that are working full-time. So right now I don't feel like Charlotte's back full-time, or I probably would include her. And then on the men's side, Roman Reigns, but he's not full-time, so we had to take him off the list. Cody Rhodes, clearly. Randy Orton, we gave the nod to. Right now, semi-full-time Cena, but he was kind of a half. Jey Uso, even though he's gone through some negative stuff, right? Lately because, he's not the right guy. He still has the best entrance, selling the most merchandise.
Yep.
And then we said Seth Rollins because Seth is one of the it's CM Punk and CM Punk.
Yeah.
Those were our guys. So Seth Rollins were kind of on the fence, but he does show up every week. He is there every week. I also think the brand split when you have limited talent, and this is why when you watch shows like I was catching up on LFG today. I loved LFG, by the way. But it's going to take those kids 3 to 5 years to get to the main roster. So if this is the talent base that you have, and they don't want to pay talent because they don't pay UFC talent either, they're not in the business because every million they give away to talent, guess what? That's $1 million they don't put in the bank to pay off the debt for all the other things that they bought, like the UFC, which they spent $4 billion on. So they bought the WWE to pay off that debt. And so that's why they don't pay talent. There's about 5 talent that make north of $5 million a year. Then everybody else is just kind of, it's a nice living. But if you don't have house shows, back in the day, you got paid a bonus for house shows. You had a downside guarantee. And if you got to it, awesome. If you didn't, they gave you a check to make you even for the end of the year. But without those, you're basically working like a baseball player. Here's your salary. Here's when you're working. And to me, that's a short-term solution to long-term non-success, I guess.
Yeah. Surprised you guys didn't throw Jacob Fatu on there. Maybe he's going to be a guy you pay.
Well, he's not there yet. He's not. You got to remember, these are guys that they put him up on the marquee. People are going to recognize him and buy a ticket. Do you think the average fan right now?
Not yet.
Jacob Fatu, he's not on the Tonight Show. He's not on Jimmy Kimmel. No. So, but I love him. I think he's going to be amazing. But he's got to learn how to talk. To me, I don't want to go back and work for the WWE. But part of my job when I was there was to run a room called the pre-tapes room, and I worked with talent on character development. And I would do all of the interviews for home video and Entertainment Tonight and Access Hollywood and that. And I loved doing it during the day. They need that to happen again. Because a lot of these talent don't know how to cut promos. They just don't. And if you can't cut a promo, you can't get over. And if you can't talk and make people believe in you, you can't get over. And I would defy you to give me 10 names that can walk out there and give a promo and get the crowd to cheer or get the crowd to boo you. It's a hard thing to do, and not everybody's cut out for it.
At WWE, they'll give you a mic for like 10 minutes. Like you said, a long period of time. So it's like sink or swim. You better be good because they're gonna. You have to fill up the time. You had to eat up some time with your promos.
And if you don't, then you're not going to be on TV. And it's all a trickle-down effect. I mean, Karrion Kross, to me, is one of the most underrated stars on the roster.
Yeah, he's awesome. Yep.
He's awesome. And the other day he did a video going, man, they're going to start selling my T-shirt in the arena. Really? You're not already? And then you got Chelsea Green. To me, she's the #1 superstar when it comes to creativity on the entire roster. And you're going to take away her title? Give it to Zelina Vega, all 4'11", 110 pounds of her. And the story is very nice with her father. I never want to discount that. But in the wrestling world, Chelsea Green, clearly something's going on backstage. She didn't have a match at WrestleMania. I heard that she questioned it, which she should be allowed to do, I might add. You've got 14 matches, and one of your champions is not having a match who's arguably more over than anybody on the male and female side of things. And all of a sudden she loses to somebody you just signed 3 months ago. And then Zelina Vega did an interview going, oh my goodness, I didn't know till right before I was going to win. Why would you ever say that?
Right.
And those fans who don't understand, like, Coach, what's the big deal? WWE likes to keep things secret. Not those things they don't. I knew what I was doing 3-4 weeks in advance, and I was a tag team champion once.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
If you're a champion or you're on that level, they're talking to you weeks in advance, sometimes months in advance. Because if you do it correctly, you can still win when you lose. Meaning you can lose a title and still win. I would argue that Chelsea Green, even though it was last minute, she still won the night. Because what did she do? She lined up people with little American flags, and she said goodbye to her character. And I mean, It was amazing. She didn't cry about it, even though she could have. And to me, that's what every talent needs to understand. If you're not investing in your own brand, you're going to be sitting around all day waiting for some little writer to walk up, hand you a script, and say, here's what you're saying tonight. Go out and do it. And when I was there in my first run, we had 20 guys, 25 guys that could main event WrestleMania. It was hyper competitive. And if you think Rock or Stone Cold or Triple H or The Undertaker or Shawn Michaels or the Dudley Boys, the list goes on and on. If you think they were sitting around all day waiting to be told what they were going to do, you're sadly mistaken. You've got to be aggressive, and you have to be creative with your character as well.
So did you know beforehand that Rock was going to kick you in the butt and say, you know, you got to do the Charlton and dance and stuff? Did you know that beforehand?
1,000%. Everything we ever did. And I give him all the credit in the world. The very first time I was ever on WWE television was right in the middle of the it doesn't matter time for him. And the crowd loved it. He was the only superstar that was allowed to do an interview live on SmackDown, because SmackDown was a tape show. Everybody else taped it, no question asked. Not Rock, because a lot of his were interactive. Millions and millions and millions of the Rock's fans. So I had been with the company for 4 months. I wasn't allowed to be on TV until I was done with my job in Kansas City. So I was lucky. I was able to travel every week and learn without the pressure of being on TV. So when I was finally free to be on, I walked in, what did I tell you earlier? Brian and Rock in a room by themselves. Hey, we have a different idea for you tonight. We don't want to start your character off being stupid. Because if you're coming in, you clearly would have watched the show, so why would you feed into our stuff? So we reversed it, and it worked brilliantly. And all we did was, hey, Rock, who the hell are you? I've never seen you before, basically. And I'm very hesitant. And he's like, it's all right. You can tell the Rock. I'm like, well, you know, my name's Jonathan Coachman, but they call me the coach. The coach of what? The coach of a little softball team? The coach of this? The coach of that? Crowd, you can hear him laughing. Oh, Rock's making fun of the coach. He said coach 7, 8, 9 times. And this is my first lesson learned about branding. And branding everything that I do is when I walked out, he gets done with his promo on the Big Show, whoever, and then he comes back to me and he goes, so why do they call you the coach? Well, now I'm comfortable. I'm like, well, it's a funny, it doesn't matter why they coach. And so we put it on the end instead of the beginning. And so I walked out of the arena. We were in Chicago, and the crowd stands back there waiting for pictures and autographs. Coach, 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 coach. And that was when I realized, man, Rock's a genius. But B, you really have to think about everything that you do, because you're manipulating the fan base and you're putting them right here. And that's what we did that night. And that's what I try to do even to this day with everything that I do.
Love that. And Rock was so good because even Kevin Kelly, remember you used to call him Hermie, and then everyone go Hermie. It's just like he does like the little things. He gets you, he just gets you at the end. Yeah, it's so good.
You know what's so funny? You know what's so funny about Kevin Kelly is, and I everybody gets heat backstage or whatnot, and I don't know if he was in trouble or whatever. But the day, do you remember the day that we used to shoot teases? And we'd have one of us outside the Rock's locker room. Coming up next, Kevin Kelly's going to catch up with the great one, the Brahma Bull, the Rock. And so one night, and we're sitting in the production meeting, and I'm reading what they wanted him to do. And I was like, I've never said no, but I might have to draw the line at this one. But he wasn't really in a position at the time, from what I remember, to say no, if you know what I mean. Yes. And they're like, all right, if you don't want to do it, I'm sure we got 3 other guys that'll do it. And that was the night that we shoot it. We're shooting him next to JR saying it. And all of a sudden he looks around and he sticks his finger up his nose. And he's got his finger up his nose like this, like he's picking his nose. And so we go to commercial break and come back. Rock comes out of his locker room and Kevin Kelly's like, hey, Rock. He goes, whoa, wait a second. Did the Rock just see you picking his nose? He's like, no, Rock, no, the Rock saw you. So I want you. And so basically made him do it for the whole, I'd have to go back and watch the whole thing. But I think he made him do the whole interview with his finger up.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? And I was like, there's no way in hell I would do that. But then you fast forward to one of my last appearances, and I let them pull my pants down and spray paint my ass with DX on it. So what's more embarrassing? I don't know.
Right. Yeah, true.
But,
true.
I would do the fun stuff. I would never I would never pick my nose on camera. I just wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it.
Hey, sometimes you got to do, you got to do
You got
it.
to do what you got to do.
Yeah. I love it. Well, Coach, let's wind it down, head towards finish, because I could keep you on here forever. I don't want to monopolize your time. I mean, geez, I could talk to you about wrestling and sports and gambling and all this stuff forever. So just give us a peek of what's to come for, BTT and everything else you got going on.
Yeah, well, thank you, Johnny. Yeah, we've got a really, really busy schedule. The easiest thing to do, we have 2 different YouTube pages. Just go and subscribe. One's our Behind the Turnbuckle. The other one is Coaching Company. And we have a daily show Monday through Friday on the Stadium Network. You can watch us on TV, social media, YouTube, whatever. And then we have 2 wrestling shows. We're taping this on a Monday. I've got a show later tonight, right after Monday Night Raw. But we're growing, and people can see me on the PGA Tour as well. But it's really about the PFL. My role there, I kind of call myself trying to morph into the Dana White of the PFL. But we're having a blast. I love MMA. So between all of that and what we're doing right here with the team that I have, easiest thing to do is just subscribe to our YouTube pages. Turn on the notifications, and there's a little ding every time we start a new show. We have so much content, Johnny. I'm having a blast. But at our core, we're trying to help as many people as we can, have great days, have fun, learn a little bit. I say educate and entertain is our core values. And once I changed how I approached everything kind of changed for me as well. So I plan on living the rest of my career and the rest of my life in this space. And hopefully we can go to the moon with our brands. But a lot of people out there have found us, and we're very, very thankful for that.